A man owned a small ranch in Montana. One day, the labor department got a tip he wasn't paying proper wages to his employees, so they sent an investigator to find out what's going on. "Please tell me how many employees you have and how much you pay them," the investigator asked the rancher. The rancher replied, "My ranch hand has been with me 3 years and I pay him $1,200 per week plus free room and board. The cook has been here a year and I pay him $1,000 per week plus room and board. And there is a half-wit. He works 18 hours a day with no days off, doing about 90% of the work around here. He makes about $10 per week and pays his own room and board, although I buy him a bottle of bourbon every Saturday night. He also sleeps with my wife occasionally." The investigator said, "That's the guy I want to talk to." "You already are," replied the rancher. Teacher. What is soft, but on a woman's hand becomes hard? Johnny. Nail polish, miss. The principal is beside himself at this point, but before he could interject. Teacher. What do men and women have in the middle of their legs? Johnny knees. Teacher. What do married women have wider than unmarried women? Johnny beds. Teacher. Which part of my body gets dripping wet when I'm excited? Johnny, your tongue. Two old men, Bob and Jack, were sitting on a park bench, feeding the pigeons and talking about baseball. Bob turned to Jack and asked, "Do you think there's baseball in heaven?" Jack thought about it for a minute and replied, "I don't know. But let's make a deal. If I die first, I'll come back and tell you if there's baseball in heaven, and if you die first, you do the same." They shook on it. Sadly, a few months later, poor Bob passed away. Soon afterward, Jack was sitting in the park, feeding the pigeons by himself, and heard a voice whisper, "Jack. Jack." Jack replied, "Bob, is that you?" "Yes, it is," whispered Bob's ghost. Jack, still amazed, asked, "So, is there baseball in heaven?" "Well," said Bob, "I've got some good news and some bad news." "Give me the good news first," Jack said excitedly. "Well," said Bob, there is baseball in heaven." Jack says, "That's great." "What news could ruin that?" Bob sighs and whispers. A married couple walks through the zoo and stops by the gorilla enclosure. The woman says, "Mark, did you know gorillas behave a lot like humans? Watch this. I'm going to test it with a little harmless fun." She discreetly shows one shoulder. The gorilla immediately reacts, pounding on the bars. "See?" she says. "Like us, gorillas can't resist their instincts." Mark smiles. "Now show both shoulders, let's see what happens." She does, and the gorilla gets even more excited, banging harder on the cage. Mark says, "All right, now turn around and show your back." Let's see the reaction. She turns, and the gorilla gets very worked up, hitting the bars fiercely and trying to break free. The woman nervously asks, "Mark, what now?" Mark calmly replies, "Tell him you're tired and not in the mood." Let's see if gorillas and humans are really that similar. It was a day like any other at the office for Dave when all of a sudden a bear opens his door. "We're out of coffee," says the bear, and it left. Dave was obviously surprised that a literal bear opened his door. He almost thought he may have been smoking something, but he brushed it off immediately. Maybe someone is pulling a prank, I don't know. But later, when he goes to the break room, he learns that they are definitely out of coffee. The next day, Dave is at his workplace again, and, wouldn't you know, the same bear opens the door. "The AC is going out," says the bear, and it left. And of course, the AC went out. It was hot at his desk, and he tried to keep cool, but he got through the rest of the day. "This is just awful," says Dave. And then on the third day, the bear opened his door again. "You're being laid off." and the bear promptly left. "What?" he said, and just like that, he went to the manager's office to ask him directly, "Is it true? Am I really being laid off?" "Oh," says the manager, "I was planning to tell you this afternoon, but yes, it's true. Who told you, may I ask?" "Who told me?" says Dave. "There has a bear visiting me every day at my office." "Who is he?" And the manager says, "Oh, he's new here. He is the bear of bad news." A man and his wife were driving along, chatting. The wife asked, "Honey, if I died, would you remarry?" He thought for a moment and replied, "Well, yes, I think I would." The wife fell silent, clearly not thrilled. After a while, she asked, "If you did remarry, would you give her my jewelry?" "Well, yes, I suppose I would," he answered. Now, even less pleased, she pondered quietly before asking, "Would you give her my handbags, too?" "Sure, I think I would," he said. Frowning, she pressed on. "What about my golf clubs?" He quickly replied, "No." Surprised, she asked, "Why not?" "Because she's left-handed." Elsie, an elderly lady, was patiently waiting to park in a spot when a young man in his brand-new red BMW zipped around her and claimed the space she had been eyeing. Fuming, Elsie approached the young fellow and, with a forced smile, said, "I was about to park there." The young man, barely glancing at her, replied with a smirk, "That's what you get to do when you're young and sharp." Infuriated, Elsie climbed back into her car, shifted it into reverse, and without hesitation stomped on the accelerator, ramming straight into his shiny BMW. The young man rushed back, eyes wide, and shouted, "What on earth did you do that for?" Elsie, now with a satisfied grin, looked him in the eye and said, "That's what you can do when you're old and rich." Elsie, an elderly lady, was patiently waiting to park in a spot when a young man in his brand-new red BMW zipped around her and claimed the space she had been eyeing. Fuming, Elsie approached the young fellow and, with a forced smile, said, "I was about to park there." The young man, barely glancing at her, replied with a smirk, "That's what you get to do when you're young and sharp." Infuriated, Elsie climbed back into her car, shifted it into reverse, and without hesitation stomped on the accelerator, ramming straight into his shiny BMW. The young man rushed back, eyes wide, and shouted, "What on earth did you do that for?" Elsie, now with a satisfied grin, looked him in the eye and said, "That's what you can do when you're old and rich." The English teacher cleared her throat and asked, "What word starts with F and ends in K that means a lot of heat and excitement?" The principal, who had been casually listening from the back, suddenly sat up straight, his face turning pale. His eyes darted nervously toward Johnny, silently pleading for him to stay out of trouble. Johnny, without missing a beat, confidently answered, "Fire truck!" My grandson gave me that suspicious look the other day. "Grandpa," he said, "why do you always make up weird rules?" "Oh, yeah?" I said. "Like what?" He folded his arms. "Like when you said if I don't clean my room, a portal will open and suck me into another dimension." I nodded seriously. "That's how we lost your older brother." He stared. "What older brother?" I just smiled. "Exactly." He cleaned his room in 5 minutes flat. Two council workers, Jim and Dave, are staring up at the flagpole outside the council offices. A young lady walks past and is intrigued by them, just standing there, staring. She walks over to them and says, "Excuse me, I couldn't help but notice you, staring at the flagpole." "Is there anything wrong?" "The boss told us we got to measure the height of this flagpole," said Jim. "He gave us a bag of tools, but no ladder." "How are we supposed to do that then?" The girl looks at the bag of tools and sees a spanner. She picks up the spanner and undoes the nut at the base of the flagpole, kicks the bolt free, and gently guides the flagpole down to the ground. Reaching into the bag, she picks up a large tape measure and secures one end at the base of the pole. She takes the tape measure to the other end and declares, 6.13 meters, gentlemen. With a grin, she dusts off her hands and walks away. As she's walking away, Jim turns to Dave and says, "Isn't that typical of a dumb blonde? We told her we needed the height and she's given the length."